In the early years of the 20th century, a remarkable creation was taking shape. It was a time of great ambition, a period when humanity believed it could conquer nature through sheer ingenuity and will. In the bustling shipyards of Belfast, Northern Ireland, thousands of skilled hands worked tirelessly to bring a vision to life. This was not just another ship, it was a statement. It was to be the largest, most luxurious moving object ever built by humankind. The world watched with bated breath as its colossal form grew day by day, a testament to the industrial might of the age. Its name, chosen with deliberate purpose, was Titanic. The excitement surrounding its construction was palpable, spreading far beyond the shipyard gates. Newspapers across the globe printed stories, detailing its unprecedented scale and promising a new era of transatlantic travel. It was marketed not simply as a mode of transport, but as a floating palace that would ferry its passengers in unparalleled comfort and style. The White Star Line, its proud owner, declared it and its sister ships to be the pinnacle of naval architecture. They were so confident in its design, so assured of its strength, that many began to believe it was, in a word, unsinkable. As the launch day of May 31, 1911 approached, a sense of wonder filled the air. Over 100,000 people gathered to witness the moment the great hull would first meet the water. With a great groaning of timbers and the rumble of anchor chains, the vast structure slid gracefully into the River Lagan. It was a flawless launch, a perfect beginning for what was promised to be a perfect ship. To understand the legend of the Titanic, one must first appreciate the vessel itself. It was a marvel of engineering, a floating city stretching nearly 900 feet in length, longer than 4 city blocks. Its immense hull was held together by over 3 million rivets, each hammered into place by hand. Deep within its core, 29 massive boilers powered 2 gigantic reciprocating steam engines and a revolutionary third turbine. This hybrid system turned 3 enormous bronze propellers, propelling the 46,000-ton vessel through the water at a cruising speed of over 21 knots. The Titanic was designed to be a floating palace, catering to the wealthiest travelers in the world. The first-class accommodation was breathtaking in its luxury. It featured a grand staircase crowned with a magnificent glass dome that descended through several decks, heated saltwater swimming pool, a Turkish bath, a squash court, a fully equipped gymnasium. The dining saloon was the largest room afloat, capable of seating over 500 guests in opulent surroundings. Yet the Titanic was a ship of contrasts. First-class passengers reveled in splendor. The vessel also carried hundreds of hopeful emigrants in third class, or steerage. Their quarters, while clean and far superior to those on other ships of the era, were modest and segregated at the lower, noisier ends of the ship. For them, the Titanic was not a vessel of luxury but a vessel of hope, the bridge between a past of hardship and a future of possibility. The ship design also incorporated the latest safety features of the time. The hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments. These compartments were equipped with automatic watertight doors that could be closed from the bridge with the flip of a switch. This innovative system was the primary reason for the ship's reputation as being practically unsinkable. It fostered a sense of supreme confidence, a belief that technology had finally tamed the perils of the sea. On the morning of April 10, 1912, the port of Southampton, England, was alive with activity. The RMS Titanic, gleaming in its fresh paint of black, white, and buff, was ready to begin its maiden voyage. Crowds gathered at the docks to see the magnificent liner off, a band played, a sense of great occasion hung in the air. Passengers from all walks of life began to board. John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest men in America, returning home with his young new wife, Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus and his wife Ida, countless other members of high society, their presence added to the glamour and prestige of the voyage. Artists, writers, professionals, and then there were the hundreds of third-class passengers hailing from Ireland, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, and the Levant. They were families, couples, and single men and women who had sold everything they owned for a one-way ticket to the promised land of America. On the decks, the atmosphere was a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. For the wealthy, it was a social event. For the emigrants, it was the start of a profound life change. As the ship's powerful horns blasted, signaling its departure, few could have imagined that for many, this journey would be their last. The first few days of the voyage were wonderfully uneventful. The Titanic performed flawlessly, its powerful engines pushing it smoothly across a calm and placid Atlantic. Passengers settled into the ship routine. First-class guests explored the luxurious amenities, strolling along the promenade deck, playing cards in the smoking room, or dining in the elegant a la carte restaurant. The ship wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, were kept busy transmitting a constant stream of personal messages from the wealthy passengers, a novelty that clogged the airwaves with chatter about dinner parties and stock prices. The night of Sunday, April 14, 1912, was exceptionally clear and cold. The sea was unusually calm, like a sheet of dark glass, which made spotting icebergs more difficult. No waves breaking at their base. High in the crow nest, lookout Frederick Fleet peered into the star-filled darkness. Suddenly, just before 11:40 p.m., he saw it. A dark mass, a shape blacker than the surrounding night, directly in the ship path. He rang the warning bell 3 times. He telephoned the bridge, shouting, "Iceberg, right ahead!" The warning was relayed instantly to the bridge. Officers faced a terrifying, immediate crisis. First Officer William Murdoch reacted with swift professionalism. He ordered the ship turned hard a starboard, a command to steer the vessel to port, left. He signaled the engine room to reverse the engines. For an agonizing 37 seconds, the Titanic began to turn, its bow swinging away from the looming mountain of ice, but it was too little, too late. The ship was too large and moving too fast to avoid collision entirely. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side of the hull, a grinding, shuddering encounter many passengers barely felt. Deep below the waterline, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg unseen underwater mass acted like a giant can opener. It buckled the steel plates and popped the rivets, opening gashes along nearly 300 feet. Seawater poured into the first 5 compartments and then 6 of the ship's 16 watertight compartments. Thomas Andrews, the ship designer aboard for the Maiden voyage, was summoned. After inspecting damage reports, he delivered the grim verdict to Captain Smith. The Titanic was mortally wounded. It could stay afloat with 4 compartments flooded, but not 6. He estimated at most 2 hours before sinking. With the terrible knowledge that his ship was doomed, Captain Smith gave the order to uncover the lifeboats and muster the passengers on deck. The wireless operators began sending out distress signals. CQD SOS, however, a sense of unreality and a lack of urgency hampered the initial evacuation. Many passengers, still believing the ship to be the safest place, were reluctant to leave the warmth and light of the great liner for a small, open boat on the freezing Atlantic. The evacuation was further complicated by a terrible and fatal flaw. There were not enough lifeboats. The Titanic was legally compliant with the outdated safety regulations of the time, which based lifeboat capacity on a ship tonnage, not its passenger count. As a result, the ship carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for just 1,178 people, roughly half of the 2,224 souls on board. In the ensuing confusion, the first lifeboats were launched partially empty. The women and children first protocol was interpreted differently by officers on opposite sides of the ship. One allowed men to board if no women were waiting, while the other launched boats with empty seats. As the ship bow sank deeper into the icy water, the angle of the decks became progressively steeper. Panic began to set in as the reality of the situation became terrifyingly clear. The ship band, led by Wallace Hartley, famously assembled on deck and began to play, their calm and dignified music providing a surreal soundtrack. Their performance was an extraordinary act of courage, an attempt to bring a measure of peace to the chaos. As the water crept higher, reaching the forward well deck and beginning to submerge the grand staircase, the desperate scramble for the remaining lifeboats intensified. The great ship was groaning and protesting, its lights flickering as the electrical systems began to fail. In the final moments, the Titanic's stern rose high out of the water, silhouetted against the starry sky. The immense strain on the hull became too much to bear. With a deafening roar, likened to thunder or the sound of tearing metal, the ship broke in two between the third and fourth funnels. The forward section, now completely flooded, pulled the stern almost vertical before it detached and plunged into the depths. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, just 2 hours and 40 minutes after striking the iceberg, the magnificent RMS Titanic vanished beneath the waves, leaving over 1,500 people struggling for their lives in the freezing water. In the wake of the disaster, as the world reeled from the loss of the great ship and so many lives, questions began to surface. How could this happen? The first and most pressing mystery was the speed at which the Titanic sank. The vessel was lauded for its advanced safety features, particularly its watertight compartments. It was designed to be a fortress of the sea. The prevailing theory for many years was the iceberg had sliced a single, long gash in the hull. However, modern analysis of the wreck suggests a different story. The iceberg did not create one continuous cut, but rather a series of smaller holes and buckled plates along the starboard side, compromising 6 compartments at once and dooming the ship from the start. Another haunting question is why there were so few lifeboats. It seems almost incomprehensible today that a ship would set sail without enough lifeboats for everyone on board. The stark reality is that the Titanic was fully compliant with the maritime laws of its time. The British Board of Trade regulations were woefully outdated, having been written for much smaller ships. The Titanic actually carried more lifeboats than it was legally required to. The original plans had called for more, but they were removed to avoid cluttering the first-class promenade deck, a decision driven by aesthetics that would have devastating consequences. Perhaps the most debated mystery is whether the disaster could have been avoided. The Titanic wireless operators had received multiple ice warnings throughout the day of April 14th. Some of these messages were passed to the bridge, but not all of them were treated with the gravity they deserved. Furthermore, the SS Californian was stopped in the same ice field, less than 20 miles away. Its crew saw the lights of a large ship and its distress rockets. Yet, for reasons still debated, its captain failed to respond, a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. These questions point not to a single cause, but to a chain of failures. For the 1,500 souls left in the water, the end was swift and cruel. The North Atlantic temperature was a fatal -2 degrees Celsius, well below freezing. In such conditions, life is extinguished in a matter of minutes. The sounds of their cries for help echoed across the silent, starlit sea, a terrible chorus that haunted the 705 survivors huddled in the lifeboats. Most of these survivors could only listen, helpless, as the sounds gradually faded away into an eerie silence. Only one lifeboat, commanded by Officer Harold Lowe, went back to search for survivors, but by then, it was too late. They managed to pull just 4 people from the water, only one of whom survived the night. The rescue ship, the RMS Carpathia, had heard the Titanic distress calls and had been racing through the dangerous ice field at full speed. Its captain pushed the vessel to its absolute limit. It arrived on the scene at around 4 o'clock in the morning, nearly an hour and a half after the Titanic had disappeared. Its crew and passengers witnessed a heartbreaking sight, a vast, empty expanse of ocean dotted with a few lifeboats and the floating debris of the great liner. Over the next 4 hours, the Carpathia carefully picked up all the survivors, a somber and exhausting process. The survivors were a mixture of shock, grief, and hypothermia, many having lost husbands, wives, and children. When the Carpathia arrived in New York on April 18th, it was met by a crowd of 40,000 people in the pouring rain for news. The world finally learned the true scale of the disaster. The story became an instant international sensation, and official inquiries were launched in the United States and Great Britain. These investigations sought to understand what went wrong, interviewing survivors and experts to piece together the timeline of the tragedy. The inquiries laid bare the systemic failures that had led to the immense loss of life. For decades, the Titanic itself remained lost, its final resting place a mystery. It lay somewhere in the crushing darkness of the deep Atlantic, over 2 miles beneath the surface. Many expeditions were launched to find it, but the search area was vast and the technology of the time was inadequate for such a daunting task. The wreck became a kind of holy grail for deep-sea explorers. The quest to find the Titanic final resting place captivated imaginations for over 70 years. Numerous expeditions armed with the best technology of their day tried and failed. The deep ocean is a challenging environment. Pitch black under immense pressure, a vast, uncharted floor. The exact location of the sinking was uncertain, the distress call coordinates were slightly inaccurate. The great ship remained elusive until a breakthrough in underwater technology and a determined explorer changed everything. That explorer was Dr. Robert Ballard, an oceanographer who had long dreamed of finding the wreck. In 1985, Ballard led a joint French-American expedition equipped with a revolutionary deep-sea system called Argo. Argo was an unmanned ROV towed above the seabed, sending live video back to the surface. Ballard searched for a trail of debris, not a single large object. For weeks they scanned the ocean floor, finding only mud. Then, early morning September 1st, 1985, a strange object appeared on the monitors. It was one of Titanic's massive boilers. Excitement and awe swept the control room. They had found the debris field. Following the trail, they found the ship bow. The bow sat upright on the ocean floor, ghostly and poignant. Wooden decks had been eaten away by marine organisms. The steel structure remained draped in rusticles. A year later, Ballard returned with Alvin. Human eyes saw the wreck for the first time since 1912. The images were haunting and beautiful. The sinking of the Titanic was a profound shock to the world, a brutal lesson in the dangers of human hubris. Its loss served as a powerful catalyst for change, leading to sweeping reforms in maritime safety that continue to protect lives to this day. In response to the tragedy, the first International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, or SOLAS, was held in 1914. This landmark conference established a host of new regulations. Most critically, it mandated that all ships must carry enough lifeboats for every single person on board. It also required lifeboat drills and inspections to ensure crews were prepared for an emergency. Furthermore, the disaster led to the formation of the International Ice Patrol. This organization, operated by the United States Coast Guard, was tasked with monitoring the presence of icebergs in the North Atlantic and broadcasting warnings to all ships in the area. The tragedy also highlighted the crucial importance of wireless communication. New regulations required that radio equipment on passenger ships be manned 24 hours a day, ensuring that distress calls would never again go unheard. In a very real sense, every person who travels by sea today owes a debt of safety to those who were lost with the Titanic. Beyond its impact on safety, the story of the Titanic has become a permanent fixture in our collective culture. It persists as a powerful parable about technology versus nature, wealth versus poverty, and courage in the face of death. The tales of heroism, such as the band playing on or Captain Smith going down with his ship, have become legendary. The discovery of the wreck in 1985 reignited global fascination, allowing us to see the ship once more and bringing a new, tangible dimension to the story. Books, documentaries, and films, most notably James Cameron's 1997 epic. The enduring wonder of the Titanic lies in its human element. It is a story not just of a ship, but of the 2,224 people aboard her, each with their own hopes, dreams, and fears. It reminds us of our own vulnerability and the fragility of the systems we create. The great liner, once a symbol of mankind mastery over the elements, now rests in the silent darkness, a monument to a night when that mastery failed. It teaches us a timeless and humbling lesson, that for all our ingenuity and ambition, we must always maintain a profound respect for the vast and unpredictable power of the natural world.